Who knew? Who knew that in politics, a field where more than a few people think the key players do way too much talking and not enough listening, who knew that talking your head off could make you a superstar? Such is apparently the case with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, he of the nearly 13-hour filibuster on Wednesday. During his speech, the hashtag #StandWithRand began trending on Twitter, and that led to buzz that Rand should run for president in 2016. Senator Paul responding to that question in Politico, answering he is seriously considering a White House run, a possibility being celebrated in mainstream conservative media like the National Review and the American Spectator, as well as by ultra-conservative groups like the Tea Party Express. But not everyone agrees, including one Republican who's already run for president twice, as he quoted from the Wall Street Journal's editorial page.
Mr. Paul wants to be taken seriously. He needs to do more than pull political stunts that fire up impressionable libertarian kids in their college dorms.
This president is not going to use a drone against a non-combatant sitting in a cafe anywhere in the United States.
McCain and Lindsey Graham there sort of trying to undermine the theme behind Rand Paul's filibuster. They weren't all that happy with it. Let's start with, is a filibuster enough? Is there to launch a new star in the Republican Party? Is that enough to turn Rand Paul from the son of Ron Paul to his own presidential candidacy?
I think the field's wide open. Obviously, a long time between now and 2016. I think he's staking out his ground. I do think it was important and is important to have a conversation on drones in general. You know, it's sort of interesting. We talked about Gitmo earlier. You know, drones policy is much more draconian. But I think ultimately Rand Paul is staking out his ground. You know, his father always had a very different view on foreign policy, and I think it sounds like he's developing the same kind of thing.
The short answer is not if you're nuts. I mean, you know, that is the short answer here. And this is,
really
he looked
family business to a certain degree.
But really, I mean, you look absurd. There's no credibility to his position. The entire Republican Party was against his position on the other side. You look like a fool, and from a Democratic consultant's point of view, God bless us the day he's a Republican nominee for president.
Well, that brings me to my next question, which is sort of the number crunching and horse race aspect of this. How bad for the Republican Party is it if he's in the field in 2016? I mean, the impact on the primary, I would assume he would have to move the entire primary to the right, which would be potentially devastating for Chris Christie.
I'm confused. First of all, I actually, of course, I disagree with you, Scott. I don't think it was mistaken at all. And I think that...
so let's talk about drones. I mean, this is absurd. The Israelis have been using drones for over a decade. All of a sudden, we woke up today that we don't have armed drones coming over our country. No one's no one's bombing an unarmed civilian in a cafe, which is what he was saying. This is and it just seems like a crazy argument that we should have surveillance. We have surveillance. We have non-stop surveillance.
If the point was you wanted the president to go on the record and state that it won't happen here in America, okay, you achieve that goal.
But these aren't armed drones. These are not armed drones. What are we talking about?
This is well, as I said, my view is that there should be a conversation about drones in general. And I think it's amazing to me, here the Republican is advocating for restraint and not allowing our president to assassinate people overseas. The drones have been used in Pakistan and assassinating people.
And you're against that?
Yeah, it certainly needs discussion. Yeah,
are you against using drones to go after terrorists who are killing American civilians?
Yeah, well, without more restriction, absolutely. I mean, you talked about torture earlier. Waterboarding seems to me a whole lot more practical than drones. Drones, there's civilian casualties.
These aren't mutually exclusive.
And as long as we're having this debate, what's the difference between having a drone strike in Pakistan or sending a cruise missile into Pakistan?
Oh, well, there's a big difference because
it's a remote attack.
No difference.
You're not having. How many cruise missiles are we lobbying into Pakistan today?
We're not because we're using drones instead.
The nature of the arsenal is no difference. You can't make a moral distinction between a drone and a cruise.
You go back to the first Gulf War when we had those camera pictures.
It's interesting to me, right, that the Republican is taking the more pacifist philosophy here. I think President Obama's been giving carte blanche to do anything he wants. And actually, some of the people on the left are concerned about this drone policy. I certainly am. And I think it's counterproductive. I think we should have a war for civilization rather than a war on terror. I think we need a war for civilization.
Right,
and ultimately, drones are not civilized.
Let's say you're right, but it's Republicans in your party that's calling him, forget what Scott just said, which I'm sure most people would agree about, Mr. Paul. Your own Republicans are calling him a wacko.
I'm all for a fight for civilization. I mean, I had a professor at Howard Zinn who life was changed when he was part of carpet bombing of civilian neighborhoods in France. But that's inhuman as well. You're bombing people who you never see. So there's nothing civilized in that kind of killing. Once you leave muskets, there's nothing honorable about mass killing.
And I'll throw this out there. If it was George Bush sitting in the White House, not Barack Obama, would the Republican Party be as vehemently opposed or as vehemently concerned about this application of drones as it is right now with President Obama in the White House? I mean, this is, members of your party were, you know, absolutely up in arms that anybody would question warrantless wiretapping.
But I think the world's upside down, isn't it? Because we got McCain criticizing Rand Paul for opposing drones. And so I think it seems to me the world's upside down. Look, I think this whole terrorist issues that we talked about tonight are very complex and need, you know,
I just wanted to return
in-depth
to the issue where you started with. I mean, it's amazing. You do one 13-hour filibuster and you think you're qualified to run for president. It sounds like father like son. And should he run, the Democrats will say hallelujah, because whoever the Republican moderate is in a race with someone like him, the race is over before it even started.
I guess it was Andy Warhol said everybody deserves their 15 minutes of fame. Well, in the age of social media and blogs, everybody's going to get it.
All right, so we got a little talk about Rand Paul in there, and more drone discussion, no doubt, coming in the days and weeks to come. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Senator Carl Levin is retiring from the U.S. Senate. We're going to break down what that means for the future of the Senate. Could Democrats lose the majority next year? Stay with us.